Well, I'm excited to have John Schober with us today. He is a senior consultant with Human Capital Group, and they are a top 40 executive search firm that has been in business for 15 years. In his position, he is tasked with helping corporate leaders to understand and maximize their investment in human capital. And he's recently been on a transition himself, and it was one of purpose and passion. And so when I heard his story, I wanted him to come share with you what he's learned over the years. So John, come on up and share with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's fantastic. Well, thank you. Welcome. I'm so glad that I can be here. Like Craig said, I've kind of been in my own transition. I say it took about 3 to 5 years. I think my wife says it took about 30 years. So, it's amazing what perspective does when you're in this. But quick background on me, just sort of to kind of set the stage from maybe a work perspective. I spent about 15 years at Dell. Do we have any Dell people? No? Okay, one Dell person. Awesome. Okay. So I spent about 15 years at Dell, did 2 tours of duty in the early 90s, and then came back. I see someone nodding their head. Do you understand that phrase, 2 tours of duty at Dell? Okay. Appreciate that. Was there in the early 90s, again in 2000s. Most of my time was in operations, IT operations. In 2008 or 9 is when Dell acquired Perot. I helped with some of their acquisitions, integrations team as we acquired Perot. And really sort of in that time, it really began my own journey of transition. And we'll get to that in just a second. But the first thing I have is, just in case I'm a really horrible speaker, I think I maybe just start with a gift, okay? So I'll bribe you guys at the front end to laugh at my lame jokes and give me some human interaction. So I have here a book called 48 Days to the Work You Love by Dan Miller. If anyone is in a job search mode, which I think there might be a few of you, this is a book that I highly recommend. I'm here. I'm basically waiting for someone to see who wants to have this book. So 48 Days to the Work You Love by Dan Miller is a book, and he talks a lot about the aspects of job seeking. One of those aspects is you have to be very proactive. I'm trying to drop hints or else nobody wants this book. You have to be very proactive, okay? So, it's great that you're energetic. It's great that you're waving your hands. But if you don't actually come up and do anything, you're not going to get the book, okay? So, you know what? You will. Thank you very much. I will get you a book online, and I'll do the best that I can to get you. But yes, that's one of the most important things that I want you to leave with is in this transition, be very active, be very engaged. But also there's a lot of good information in there about kind of the practical aspects of your job search. Can I call out your name? What's your name?
Roxanne.
Hi, Roxanne, can I give you another gift?
Sure.
Okay, how about if I give you the words of hope? Can I do that? There's about 15 or 20 scriptures in there that I think will be a lot of encouragement to you. If anybody wants words of hope, you can send me an email at the end of this. I'll give you my email address. Where's Gary? Where'd Gary go? There we go. Gary, you didn't get the book, but I'll give you the 48-day schedule. Okay, so that'll tell you what to do day 1 and day 2. Who wants to know how to write a resume? Does anyone want to know how to write okay, there we go. All right, this is by Liz Ryan. She's on LinkedIn, and she has a LinkedIn group called the Human Workplace, and she's got some good information on writing a resume. Last thing one of the things that Dan Miller teaches is he says, this 48-day process, on day 1 you do this, on day 2 you do this, on day 3 you do this. And I think on day 48, you go and he encourages you to ask a millionaire to lunch. Now, I'm not asking you to go and get their tax returns and find out if someone's a millionaire, okay? It's okay. That's not the point. But would anyone, as you're going through networking and you're talking to people, would anyone like to have some questions that might be interesting to ask of a millionaire? Anyone like, come on, you got to play my game. Okay, you got to play my game and get engaged. Thank you very much. There you go. 10 questions to ask a millionaire. All right, so, if I'm totally, completely worthless in my speaking, there's at least materials that other people have created that may be of value to you. So here's me. This is, 2010 or so at Big Bend. And like I said, I was I was at Dell. I was making this kind of career transition inside of Dell from sort of the operations side into marketing. So I was kind of, what do I want to do when I grow up? And life was good. I had a great job, great marriage, 7 kids. The 7 kids are a lot of work, but they were all healthy. And so I'm at Big Bend, and I'm walking around, and I'm having this time with nature and with the Lord, and I'm just, what do I want to do? What's God's calling for me? How does He want me to engage? And as I was making this trek through Big Bend, my analogy that I had is, everything was running right. The engine was running. The car was waxed. And by the way, my first car was a 1965 Mustang convertible. Not that 1965 Mustang convertible. But I do want to ask if anyone has a 65 convertible that you're wanting to pass on to someone else. I am actively looking for another one. So I just thought I'd drop that. So the engine was running. The car was all waxed up. Everything in my career was going the way that it should be going. But I had absolutely no idea where I wanted to go. I was completely clueless, okay? And so that got me to think, what's my purpose? What's the purpose that God has in my life? And sort of about that time, the Lord decided that He was just going to put me through boot camp on this find your passion, find your purpose. And I was given my promotion papers to the industry. Anyone gotten the promotion papers to the industry? Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And so now all of this, what do you want to do when you grow up, became very real. I had 7 children, a wife, all the financial burdens that go with that. And so I began a very intentional journey to figure out this thing called purpose and passion. And as I was doing with this, or as I was going through this, the thing that really came up was, find your passion, find your passion, which I always thought was like really weird because I think passion is like romance and like, lovey-dovey stuff. And my wife will be the first to tell you, I am not romantic, okay? So anytime I hear the word passion, I think, oh, that's that lovey-dovey stuff. I have no idea what that is. And so my first problem was trying to kind of get through what is passion. And I'll fast forward a little bit. Passion is really knowing where God has called you and knowing who God has called you to. But this chart kind of came up, and it gave me sort of, why should I even care about passion? Again, I'm not romantic. What's the big deal? Life is good. Why do I care? Well, I came up with this, and this is sort of the why you should care about doing what it is that God called you to do. More importantly, I think serving who God's called you to serve. And it really comes down to this. So if you look at a graph, and you kind of think that on one side of the scale you have talents, on the other side of the scale you have your passions. And your talents are your skills, your abilities, the things that you do. And, for the most of us, we get paid for our talents. I mean, that's kind of why people hire us. So let's just say that we're at 7. On a scale of 1 to 10, we're at 7 in our talents. We're doing pretty good. We're engaged. So you think, wow, I'm like 70% of my potential. Well, here's where the power of passion is. If my passion, if where I'm at, if who I'm at is at a 3, then really this is all that I'm actually doing, and everything else is unfulfilled potential. So let me kind of walk this through. In some aspects, a lot of what I do is teaching. Those are some of my coaching, teaching, or some of the talents that I have. But my passion is for adults. My passion is for the workplace. My passion is for this. If I was a teacher in an elementary school, I might be doing a lot of the same stuff, but it's the wrong who. Nothing wrong with kids, right? I have kids. We love kids, okay? But my passion, the who that God has called me to, is adults. It's career-minded. I enjoy talking to people about work and careers and HR and all of that kind of stuff. So that's where the power of passion is the power of passion is allowing you to really be that force multiplier on your talents and your skills. So let's kind of walk through this. When you really understand what your passion is allows you to kind of see beyond the turmoil and the whirlwind of today. Okay, there's going to be the layoff. There's going to be all of those things that happen today. When you're really locked in, and I'm going to keep emphasizing this word, when you're really locked in on who is your who are you called to serve? In the context of business, who are you called to serve? Okay, who is your who? It allows you to sort of see the big picture. It allows you to stay focused on the goal. In terms of career, career transition is not like a GPS. Everyone have a GPS in their car, Siri, right? It says, in 1/2 mile, turn right, turn left in 1,000 feet. And you have these very clear directions, and it tells you exactly where to go. Your career transition is not going to be like a GPS map. Your career transition is going to be much more like the old pirate map, okay? The old pirate map where it's just a piece of paper and it says, north is this way, the buried treasure is over here on the island, there's a mountain range over here, there's a river over here, and you just kind of have to get from here to there. But when you come to the river, it might be flooded. You might have to find a bridge that got washed out and find something else. When you get to the mountains, you may have to go through it. You may have to go around it, okay? It's not going to tell you, left, right, 1/2 mile. But when you have your passion, it'll tell you where your true north is, and it'll tell you where that buried treasure is in your life. So when you know what your passion is, you have this force multiplier, and I wish I could say that there's like an easy way. I wish I could come up and I could say, wow, in 10 minutes, I'm going to help you find your passion. Well, hopefully I can help you, but we're probably not going to get all the way. So here's some things in my journey as I went through. Lots of good books, the 48-day books, lots of tests, Strength Finders. For me, here's a couple of coaches that I worked with. This on the left, this is Dan Miller. I had the pleasure of working with him as a coach, and that was great. On the right is Kent Julian. Getting involved in people that are mentoring you, whether they are doing it sort of in a volunteer friend basis, or if you're able to make those kinds of investments with coaches, I highly recommend it. If you were here last time, I talked about the process, and I talked about the journey. The joy of the journey is what I talked about, and I said, we all start off where we're in the status quo. Life is moving the way that we think that it's supposed to be working. We're at Dell, and life is good. And then we have the introduction of the element of chaos. I I got promoted to the industry. You know, Dell downsized. Whatever happened, chaos has occurred. And when the chaos occurs, there now is this opportunity for new possibilities. And so a lot of you guys are in this transition spot where there's an opportunity for new possibilities, and you go to that next level, and then you have a new status quo, and guess what? The cycle will continue, okay? The cycle will go on. So I say all of that to say that to find your passion, to find this force multiplying passion, it's going to take a combination of these things. You're going to have to do your homework. You're going to have to do some reading, read some good books, listen to good podcasts, come to job seekers, all of that kind of stuff. You're going to need to be engaged with people, and you're also going to have to be comfortable with the process and the journey. But what I do want to do a little bit today is just kind of walk you guys through one of the tests. Who in here has actually taken a DISC personality profile? Okay, a few of you. That's good. This has been very helpful to me. Has anyone read the book, The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni? Is that one you guys have read? It's an excellent book. He talks about the ideal team player, and he talks about you need three things to be an ideal team player. You need hunger, you need humility, and you need smarts, okay? Hunger means that you're willing to do the work, okay? You're willing to do the stuff that you need to do to get the job done. Humility goes to you're not arrogant, you're a team player. Smarts is much more about EQ, your emotional intelligence, than it is about your IQ, your intellectual intelligence. And your smarts is how do you interact with other people? And what I found is the way that you can improve your interaction with other people is first you need to understand yourself. If you understand yourself, then you need to understand other people, and then you can figure out how to interact with other people. And the DISC personality profile is one of those tools that allows you to do that. So I'm going to walk through kind of what it does. And for those of you that have been through the test, you'll probably see some of this information that's familiar to you. For others, I encourage you, I think that Craig, do y'all do DISC? I'm looking. I'm sure someone can do DISC. You can get them online. But really, what DISC does is it measures your personality kind of on two planes. One, whether or not you are a task-focused person or a people-focused person. This one really kind of bothered me because I grew up as a preacher's kid. And so preacher's kids are supposed to be people-focused people, right? Because, if you're in the church and if you love the Lord, you need to love people. And I really kind of struggled with this because I'm really not people-focused. I'm a little bit more task-focused. And so part of this was just sort of being able to understand that that's okay. And it's not that I don't like people. It's just that I tend to be a little bit more task-focused than people-focused. The other spectrum is whether or not you're active or reflective, okay? So if you kind of, everyone sort of measures somewhere in this chart, and basically this is what the DISC is. So if you're a person that is a task-focused and active person, you probably have a D personality style. You probably have a dominant personality style. I love that you guys are taking pictures of all this stuff. I promise if you just send me an email, I'll be happy to give you the entire PowerPoint deck. And I'll even write some notes or something for it. So if you're a task-focused, active person, you're dominant. If you're an active, people-focused person, you're probably an influential. You're an I. If you're a people-focused person, but you're kind of more reflexive, you kind of think about things, you're probably either a steady S, or if you're lean more to the task focus, you're a C. So let's kind of walk through this just a little bit. The D personality style, that's that dominant person. That's the person, I've got to walk over here because my eyes don't quite work. Person that's direct, decisive, a doer. Sometimes they can be domineering and demanding. Someone's nodding their head. Someone has a D in their life. They're the lion, okay? They're the guy that's going to take, guy or gal that's going to take charge. The influential person is the inspirational person, very interactive, interesting. On the negative side, they can be a little impulsive. They can be a little irritating. But they're the life of the party. They're the otter, the playful otter that's kind of the life of the party. And the S or the steady, that's someone, they're stable, they're supportive, they're secure. Sometimes they can be a little slow in action. They can be a little overly sensitive at times. And the last one we have is the compliant. They are the golden retriever. They're the faithful friend, the golden retriever. The compliant person is someone who's cautious, careful, conscientious. Sometimes they can be calculating. They can be condescending at times. But they're the beaver. They're the guy that's going to get the work done. And just by the way, God in his infinite wisdom knew that he didn't want everyone to be the same thing, so he kind of distributed these things on it. So about 3% of the population is D, and the reason for that is all the Ds would cause wars and kill everyone. 11% of the population is I, or influential. The reason for that, and I speak as an I, if it were up to us, we wouldn't actually do anything. We'd be having fun, talking and stuff. And so God knew that if it was just I's and D's, no actual work would actually get done. So 69% of the population is kind of this S, this steady. And I want to kind of stop and pause here, because sometimes we talk about these charts in the context of leadership. And I want to make sure that I make a note and I really drive home that this is not about leadership in terms of, the D's the leader, the I. Everyone, I can show you examples of leaders that are high D's, I's, S, and C's. Okay? This is not about leadership. It's not even about gender. I can show you men and women in all four of these things. So I want to make sure to drive that home. And the second thing, in the context of, people that are Christians and we follow Christ, Christ perfectly manifested all of these areas of life. You can look at Christ, the life of Christ, and you can see, the dominant Lion of Judah as he kicks over the table, right? I love that Jesus, okay? I'm kind of into that. You can see the influential Jesus as he's got thousands of people that are coming to him and preaching to him. You can see the very compassionate, steady Jesus as he's talking to the woman at the well, or the woman caught in the act of adultery. And you can see that very intellectual, compliant Jesus at 12 years old as he is teaching at the synagogues. So again, none of these have spiritual nature. None of these define leadership. All of them reflect the little piece of God that's in you. Now I've got one last. How many is last? How many C's? What's the percentage of C's? What is it? Okay, you are all of my C's because you guys did the math in your head. So all you guys are the C's. So again, the thing here, as you look at the personality, and you look at the way that God made you. Okay? God made you unique, special. Anyone have VeggieTales? Anyone have kids, or is that just me, right? God made you special and he loves you very much. Right? It sounds very trite, but it's very true. God made you special. He loves you very much. As you're in this season of transition, I really encourage you to be comfortable in who you are. Understand that there's a process that's going on. Hopefully some of these tools will help you understand yourself. I can speak, for me, again, in this 3 to 5 to 30-year transition, I'm definitely a different person. I'm definitely doing very different things than I was doing before I was promoted to the industry. So be comfortable with that. And I'll kind of leave with a sort of a final thought. And this has really become kind of a key verse for me over the past few years. And it is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. I'm going to guess that most of you guys did not decide to go on this job search at this time. Maybe some of you did. But probably most of you, it happened to you. And I just want to leave you with God has planted special things for you. Very much like an Easter egg hunt. Anyone have kids and you go on the Easter egg hunt and you've hidden these things for your kids. And why do you do that as a father? You do that as a father because you want to know that your kids trust you and love you, and they go out and they do this stuff. And there's nothing worse than the kid as they start to be teenagers and they just don't think it's cool anymore to do the Easter egg things. That's when you use grandpa and grandpa and they throw in like the money. Okay, they put the golden eggs out there. Okay, and it starts with like a couple of dollars, but by the time they're into the teenagers, there's like a $20 bill in one of those eggs. And my 16-year-olds will still go after the $20 egg. Okay, and the good news is our Heavenly Father works for us very much in the same way. And some of these things that are hidden, that God has concealed for us, He's done it so that if we will actually put our faith in Him, that there's good stuff that He's hidden from us, we'll actually find it. And I think one of those most important treasures that He's hidden from us is this thing that we call our passion. The way that we're wired, the way that God has uniquely designed us to do something, and the people that we've been called to minister to work for, to influence. And I think if you'll take the time to really kind of intentionally seek that out, I truly believe that you will find it and that you'll be blessed. Make sense? That's all I have. Thank you very much. I also do recruiting, executive recruiting, so if you want to talk about that, I'll answer as intelligently as I possibly can.
So any job search questions, passion, purpose questions, raise your hand and Concho will help.
You'll make me feel really good if you ask me questions.
Yeah. Yeah. I was noticing that most of the people were in the lower category, or I shouldn't say on the graph, they were down the reflective categories, but that doesn't mean that they're not good workers producing a lot of stuff, because the reflective and the active are, you'd think that the active person would get more production done.
No, I made it kind of a joke, but the reality is most of the people that are doing work, okay, most of the people that are doing stuff and getting stuff done are probably that reflective, that S and C person. Again, this is not about good, bad worker, good worker, okay? It does mean, though, have a little bit of awareness of who you are. And when you're in your job search mode, understand if you are that very reflective person that's kind of task-oriented, you probably shouldn't be seeking, a high-end business development sales role that's going to have you out in front of people with not a lot of structure around it. So as you look at your personality, look at how that personality is going to fit with the task, and also look at how how that's going to fit within the team that you're in. One of the important things when you're having a job interview, remember that you are interviewing the hiring manager and that team as much as they are interviewing you, okay? So ask them questions to work style and culture and that kind of stuff, because you have the opportunity to ask them as well. I think someone over here had a question.
They just wanted to see your information again. But
Oh, if you could put the last slide up, it's got my email. That'd be great. Thank you.
Does the Duke's personality profile also provide information in terms of what types of jobs fit best with each of those roles?
Great question. If you've done it, there's almost always going to be you should look at being a fireman or whatever. What I tell people to do with that is I say that is a great, and it'll usually list 15 or 20 jobs. And I think here's the bonus exercise. If you've done it and you have policeman, fireman, whatever they are, circle 3 or 4 of them that sound interesting to you. But then here's really the key. Take a few minutes to actually write, why does that sound interesting to me? Okay, so policeman. Oh man, I get to run and shoot guns and catch the bad guys and do all this cool stuff. That's going to be awesome. Okay, right? Actually write down what you think that person does or that job does. And the reason is then as you're actually going through your job search, you can actually, because sometimes what we think people do isn't really what they do or isn't what that person does. So that will give you, if you kind of say, I think a whatever does this, as you're doing your informational interviews, as you're talking to people, you can kind of validate what that person does, and you'll also begin to narrow, because for every job that there is, there's always a spectrum of skill sets in that job. So don't just kind of say, okay, I'm going to circle administrative assistant, and now I'm going to go look for administrative assistants. Take that moment to actually write down, here's what interests me about administrative assistant, and then use that in your interview process, in your informational process, to actually validate that you're the right fit. Good question. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
And honestly, can you talk about the adaptive? Because there was a large gap between my. I forget what's there's the adaptive style and the other. I can't remember what the. It's where you're comfortable and how you act like you're comfortable, basically, right?
Well,
in a position.
I probably need to look at your profile to answer you. One of the things in the personalities is some of these personalities tend to have a high degree of adaptability. My wife is Miss Adaptability. I have probably taken advantage of that strength as a D and an I because she will mend herself. It's very hard for me to mend or to mold myself. It's very easy for my wife and for other personalities. A good, not good bad, okay? Just self-awareness in how you need to interact, and also self-awareness with how you're going to interact with your boss and with your team members. If you have your old test, I'd be happy to look at it sometime. You can send me an email.
You mentioned that you had gone through this process for about 3 to 7 years, and I'd be interested in hearing a little bit more about your personal journey and maybe where you were before you started, and maybe how the career has changed because of going through this process. Yeah.
So I was in operations at Dell, so I was a network administrator. I was a geek. I'd kind of started a transition where I really wanted to get into management, so I'd kind of made some career changes inside of Dell into marketing and management. And one of the big things that I did is me and a buddy got together and we started a book club. I mean, I cannot emphasize the importance of reading, podcast, that kind of stuff. And so very early on, a friend and I, we started this book club. We were reading entrepreneurial books and all kinds of crazy stuff. And so that was really kind of the very beginning. You know, I knew at Dell that the end was probably nigh on hand, so I had a little bit of ramp, and that became the process. When I was actually in the middle of it, it really was a question, do I want to stay kind of in the corporate technology? You know, do I want to do coaching and leadership development? And I would say that for me, the big thing, you know, I'm 45 years old, married for 20 years, have 7 kids, and probably the biggest thing over the last 3 or 5 years has been about living an integrated life. For me, I didn't want to have, here's my church life, here's my work life, here's my family life. I really wanted to create an environment or be a part of an environment where work, spiritual, all of these things were very much in alignment. And I'm extremely blessed to be with an organization. We have a very strong faith. I mean, we're very corporate. You know, I mean, we work with Dell and Apple and all the big guys. But top to bottom, we're very forward and open with our faith. Probably have lost business because of, to be frank with you. I'm okay with that. But for me, that was like the big thing, was how do I live an integrated life? And that's probably the biggest thing that I really looked for in the last 3 or 4 years. Thank you. Does that help?
Hi. Okay. Hi, Jonathan. My question is, are these elements sort of ingrained in a person? Is there a chance that you could take the test and you're a DI now, and then you take it 10 years later and you move to a sort of different spectrum, or it's just your style that changes?
Probably not. Probably once you're in your mid-20s, it's probably pretty set. What you will see in as you go through this test, and I don't want to get into the mechanics, but if you're working with a coach, here's one of the values that the coaches can really kind of bring to you, is they can kind of see whether or not you're really working out of your core design, or if you kind of have this fake mask that you're wearing. And when we wear these masks, when we try to be something that we're not, that creates a lot of stress and tension for us. And so you'll see sort of those things as you go through transition periods. You'll kind of see, you know, are you kind of wearing a mask? Are you shutting down? And as a coach can kind of use this tool, and that's all it is. I mean, it's a tool, it's an instrument, it's nothing more than a thermometer. Okay, you know, a thermometer without a doctor doesn't do a whole lot of good. But a coach can kind of work you through that process and kind of use that tool. But in general, your personality is probably pretty locked in from early age. Caveat, as you get older, as you become more mature, as your emotional intelligence increases, it becomes easy for you to adjust your style in an authentic way that allows you to relate to other people. So, you know, I am like off the chart on I and D, but I can get very sensitive and compassionate, and it actually takes work for me to do that, but I can adjust and I can modulate on those details. And so as you kind of become aware, you'll learn how to do that in an authentic way, not a fake way. Does that help? Okay.
When you mentioned you started a book club,
Mm-hmm.
Which books really stood out in your mind and most affected you?
I mean, the 48 Days, I mean, that's probably been the biggest one, because everything that I did was very, I mean, it has been very work related. You know, I've read a lot of John Maxwell's material. I'm really kind of enjoying this Patrick Lencioni. All of them were kind of in the entrepreneurial, you know, infopreneur, you know, self-help. And it's just, you know, it's amazing when you just talk, when you listen to people and you hear their stories, how helpful that is. If I were to say what's on my podcast right now, there's I think 3 people that are on my podcast. Number 1 is Dan Miller, who talks a lot about this kind of entrepreneurial stuff. Number 2 is Ray Edwards, and you can look him up on iTunes, The Ray Edwards Show. He's actually kind of a marketing guy, a copyright guy, and he really talks about communication and how to communicate. And it's very applicable whether you're, if you're in the job seeking mode, you all realize that you are now salesmen and you're selling you, okay? So that's a good one. If you don't have a background in sales, just kind of, by the way, does everyone know why people hire you? People only hire you for one reason. You solve a pain. That's it. That's the only reason anyone ever gets a job, is because you solve a pain. And so Ray Edwards kind of will help you kind of, articulate this pain. Your resume should be something like this. I solve this kind of pain for these kinds of people by doing this kind of stuff. That's your introduction letter. So Dan Miller, Ray Edwards, and Michael Hyatt, former CEO of Thomas Nelson's Publishing. He's just kind of got a great, top 5 ways to be more productive this morning. And so those are my 3, and I've got other stuff, but I listen to probably every one of those podcasts each week. Anyone else? Michael Hyatt. All 3 of these guys are very much Christians. Ray Edwards is probably the most kind of forward and open, followed by Michael Hyatt, and Dan Miller is probably not quite as open and forward on his faith as some of the others. And they all have a very, very interesting and very eclectic background of faith as well, Christian background.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I was curious, do you know why there are a certain set of people that are against reading self-help books? They think I don't know why they think it's a waste of time, and that you should just be doing stuff, like you shouldn't be spending time reading about it.
Well, there are people, that is a good point, because if all you're doing is reading self-help books and you're not doing anything, then that is a waste of your time. And we probably all know people that are like that. You don't want to be that person, okay? By the same token, everyone that I've certainly met that is highly productive, highly influential, they are readers, they are listeners, they are learners, they are doers. What does the Bible say? Faith without deeds,
works.
Right, is dead, right? Faith without works is dead. So you actually have to do stuff with which also, by the way, don't try to, if you do get into this, don't try to do everything. Pick those little grains of nuggets that apply to you, or else you won't get anything done.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
As a recruiter, I'd be curious to know how you use and leverage LinkedIn to connect people with jobs.
Good question. So as a recruiter, so we do executive searches. Our searches are salaries 125 and up. The things that we are looking for is mid to senior level leaders. And we kind of have a philosophy that once you've sort of hit that $100,000 mark, you probably are technically competent, and it's about what is your leadership style. So in terms of how we use LinkedIn, it is one of those tools that we use. I highly recommend that everyone here get your LinkedIn profile, makes it as applicable and appropriate as you possibly can. But the other things that we use is we go to speakers that are industry speakers, and we'll talk to them, we'll reach out to them, we'll go to conferences, and we'll ask for attendees. So if I put my recruiter hat, LinkedIn is not the only thing that we use. And so to kind of flip that over to the job seeker or the job candidate perspective, have your LinkedIn, do your LinkedIn, but you're most likely getting your next job. I don't care if it's a $20,000 or $250,000 job. You're most likely going to get your next job through networking, through interpersonal stuff And that's probably the most likely. If anyone does want to talk to me about how recruiters work, I'm happy to talk to anyone afterwards and can give you any insight on that. Can we have one last one?
No.
Oh, Craig says no.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, John. Thanks, Craig. I'll take the clicker.